Hey guys, it's mcfixit here. We're going to be taking this Discmania MD3. This is one of those new Italian blend in that Ferrari red, and going and putting a G squad or a gravity squad. This disc is my buddy Joel's. He is part of the G squad and needs some of them on his disc. This one is a brand new one, not thrown yet, I believe, or at least is only thrown a few times in the field. It looks brand new. So I'm going to walk you through all the tools and the supplies and everything you need to be able to remove the original stamp, slap that G squad right down there in that lower section where that said MD3. And so we'll walk you through all the tools and the supplies. Here are the tools and the supplies that I will use. You're going to want whatever disc you want. You're going to have to figure out what kind of stamp you want, or stencil die technically. Then you will go ahead and print it out on a Cricut machine, just like that. And that's Oracle 651, and so that is a well, it's probably permanent technically, but I consider it semi-permanent. Hard to see the cutout on it, but it is right there. Then you will want some transfer paper, and so this works really well. It's been used a number of times. Just put a big circle around my disc with some crosshairs. You're going to want some kind of little stove or stove on your house. This is what I use because I'm out in my garage and I can let it splatter, don't really care. It keeps me out of trouble. You're going to want some paper towels. I'd go ahead and just start ripping some off because things get messy. Make sure you got some nice gloves on. That's really helpful. Some blue painter's tape works well. And we're going to be using iDye poly. I use half of a bag of it. I cut it and I put a little blue tape on there to save it, and then I put it in a mason jar almost all the way to the top with water, warm water, and then I throw in that half of a packet, shake it up, make sure you got a funnel, make sure you got a good lid on that too. You're going to want some Dawn dish soap and water, especially if your disc is at all dirty. Some acetone if you're removing any of the original stamp. Remember, we're going to be removing that right there. You're going to want some kind of weeding tool. This is just a basic Husky pick, but Cricut makes them as well. You might want one of these little, you might want one of these as well. You can also use a credit card as well. And then I like to use a Sharpie a lot of times. And then you'll want a pan that is at least big enough for it to sit down in the base of it. So, and don't ever use that pan again. I'm unplugged right now, but I'm going to go ahead and plug it in as we begin to work on making this disc die happen. With the hotbed, I prefer not to keep the disc in the hotbed while the disc is in there. I like to heat it up, pull it off of there, and so I'm just going to put about a third of this in. You want to cover the bottom and maybe just a touch more. Then go ahead and cap it up. This is where you want to make sure you have your gloves because things can get messy very quickly. You can go ahead and put that to the back. Then this has a little dial on the front of it. I put it up to about 3 or 4. Very short cord, so I'm just going to scoot that off to the side. When we start to see that not boil, but just start to smoke and glisten a little bit, we are ready to rock and roll. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and get some acetone. The pick works really well for popping this top off, especially if you already have gloves on. Go ahead and fold this a couple of times. Put about the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit bigger. Then just go back and forth on whatever you don't want there. So if you want to clean the disc completely off, that's fine. And you should see some stuff too. Fold the paper towel a little bit. Get a nice new clean spot. And one of the things I do like about these new ones is they did put the engraving on the back, or raised part on the back. So if you ever don't remember what your disc is, I mean, you can kind of tell by looking. Close that, put that way in the back. Just a little bit of Dawn dish soap and water. Nothing special here, but it does help get your disc nice and clean, ready to accept that Oracle 651. If it's brand new, I would still do this because sometimes they put some stuff when they're shipping it on your disc so they don't get damaged and rubbed together. Also, if there's anything you don't like, this is the opportunity. The other thing is you can still kind of see, if you look at the right angle, like right there, I got that light there, you can still see what the disc is as well. So if you can't see it on the back, you can still kind of angle it and see it, at least for this particular disc. Okay, we'll go ahead and set that off to the side for right now. And we will go ahead and grab this and grab the printout. I do like to print it out. I know it might be a little bit wasteful. It just helps me know what I want to be, whatever dye color I choose, which I'm choosing black for this one. So I want to make sure that I leave the G and leave this part of squad, the Q, the U, and the A, but the rest of it pretty much goes. So you got to be careful when you do this. And I will say some of these lines may not actually work as well as I want them to. You know what? In fact, I'm going to go ahead and scrape very lightly on this at about a 45-degree angle to hopefully push this in just a little bit to make it hold on to the paper. And I am going to see if I can, yeah, these are going to be so hard because it's so thin. It is probably just going to pull up. Remember, you want that A to stay, that G to stay, that part of the U to stay. And so just pull slowly. Okay, not 100% perfect, but pretty good. I doubt that piece is actually going to want to stay too, but that's part of it. These designs are pretty cool, but these are actually meant for an actual stamp, so you do get some discrepancies. And so I want to pull this S up, the whole S comes out, but we'll have lots of other parts around it that don't, other than this little piece in the center will come out, hopefully. Perfect. So this part of the Q will stay, but the bottom part does not. This is where it is really helpful to have a printout right next to you so you don't mess this stuff up. Very easy to mess up. This part of the Q will come out down below it. It's kind of like that background silhouette piece. This under part of the U will come out. Now, I will say there is a chance that because of how small these parts are, that when we do this, there is a chance that it will mess up. So we're going to go ahead and get this part of the Q, I did forget it, out. Okay, so the top part of the A stays, but this lower part goes. And then this part underneath the A goes, if I can get it out. There it goes. And then for this D, pretty much the entire D comes out, except the center, and then part of the center comes out, which is kind of confusing, but oh, that's what I didn't want. Now the hope is that it will stick better to the disc than it is on this, because it is supposed to eventually come up. So we will try our best to get the center of that D perfect. I'm going to put one finger down on it. And I accidentally flipped it over. Just take your time. Try your best to get the center part out. And then we'll put the other part back down on it. Do the best we can. This is sometimes hard to do with gloves, but take your time, be patient. And you can see that is really steaming over there, so I will go ahead and stop what I'm doing and go ahead and turn that off and go ahead and unplug it. And because this is a wood countertop, not countertop, tabletop, I'm just gonna set it just like that. And then we will get this inside of the D all squared back up right where we want it. Okay, thinking that it's looking good. I like it. So, one thing I sometimes like to do is just go ahead and find out where you kind of want it on the disc. Obviously this is going to be backwards. I guess you could technically do it like this, whichever way you want, but it might be helpful to kind of line it up. And you can just go ahead and draw a nice big circle on there, just like so. And that should help with some of the lining up in a second. Now this is a lot bigger disc. I do like to kind of stir this a little bit, stir the pot. And then we will go ahead and try our best. The main thing I care about is this lower section, getting it pretty close to where we want it. And then this is where you're going to want to use this. We want to make sure we pull all of this up how it needs to be. And so I'm going to do this side. I don't always do the back side, but on this one I think I will because it's such small pieces. If it was really, really big, I probably wouldn't worry about it near as much. And you can actually see it has pulled some of those little pieces up, which is what we wanted. So we'll go ahead and peel the piece from the backing. I'm not always the best at getting this with gloves on, so I use a pick, and a lot of times that is helpful. Let's go back to where I was. I'm sure I can get it. Just a little patience is all you need. Okay, and as you're pulling it, if you see something that doesn't look like it's catching well, come back over, scrape it a little bit more. And just like that, walloo. So you can kind of see where that was at, the circle. It may be hard to see on there. You can definitely see it a little bit better here. And so I'm going to do my best to put this part down first, and then let the rest of the disc do what it needs to do. Once I've determined where I want it, it is helpful. This disc is a little see-through too. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over first and get this nice and good. So I'm going at about a 45-degree angle with this scraper tool. And I'm just getting the initial kind of push it down on there. Now I'm going to go ahead and flip it back over. It is really nice. This is a clear disc. If this was like a S-line disc, which I hope they come out with soon with Discmania, then you wouldn't be able to see it as well, but you still probably would a little. So I'm just kind of folding it up and over, kind of doing that same thing the whole way. This also just helps give you a little bit extra security that it's not going to get accidentally dyed by doing it this way. That is why I do use a 12-inch piece. I know some people don't use as much, but it's not that expensive for vinyl, so I just go ahead and get what I think I need. And so pull this at about a 45-degree angle as well. And hopefully all of it works perfect, just like so. So the main areas you want to really focus on is the actual close parts. All this doesn't really matter if it has some air bubbles in it. I mean, obviously if it gets through the back it will, but because we have it so shallow in there, don't have to worry that much. And sometimes you'll see where you didn't get a piece. So this little piece should have come out. And so always be looking at your design. Sometimes you may even want to put it back there just to make sure you're kind of seeing everything. I think it was just the angle I had before. I couldn't see it as well. That did help. And I'm really wanting to make sure this really gets on there good. I have heard of some people letting them sit like overnight. I'll be honest, I don't normally do that. But I bet it would hold on there a little better. I'm not done yet, but I do like to just go ahead and make sure I tape this up and don't forget. Just a little extra level of security for dye to hopefully never get in there. And then the other thing I do is pull off about an 8-inch piece, kind of fold it with an inch or two in the middle, and just set it right down on there. That gives you a nice little easy handle to pick it up. We'll go back and try to get this even better. Okay, so the next step, I'm gonna move this to the middle, shake it up, then it's still very warm. You can actually see the steam coming off of it. And so I'm going to put it down in the liquid, just like so. You don't really have to put any weight on it, and you're just gonna let that thing sit for about 5 minutes. You can, because of the stamp like this one, make sure it actually got on all of it. I didn't pull it up that high because I didn't want to spill, but it is like on almost the whole thing. You may need to fill it up a little more if your stamp gets the whole width, but we'll go ahead and give that 5 minutes and we'll be back. So we are right at almost 5 minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and get some paper towels because you want to make sure you're not too messy. I always make sure I got one big one. We're gonna go ahead and lift it up and look at it real quickly. And it does look like it's going to need a little bit longer. And so this is the first Italian blend plastic I've done. So it may need a little bit longer than the old plastic did. So let's go ahead and give it another 3 minutes. Okay, let's go ahead and see where we're at on this. Same concept as before. We're just going to kind of dabble it a little bit. And so it doesn't look like it has dyed it very much. So I am going to put it back down. I'm going to put a little bit more heat on it for a minute. So because it's not really dyeing a whole lot more, like it's a little bit less, I I guess you'd say potent maybe, than the other. We're going to go ahead, I put a little bit more color from the jar in. I just heated it up just for a few seconds. There's barely any smoke coming off of it. And then we're going to go ahead and try to set it down in and see if maybe that helps. We're going to leave this on for about 3 more minutes. So let's go ahead and lift it up and see where we're at now. Does look like it got a little from Europe now, I guess, England. So let's just go ahead and call that done. Go ahead and scoot that off to the side. Dry it up. Another thing you can do, I don't always do, is just hit a little spray of your Dawn dish soap and water. I'll then go ahead and flip it over, and we'll start peeling it off. I'm going to make sure I got all of the dye off my gloves. Please make sure you wear gloves when you're doing things like this. They're not that expensive. And so, one of the things I do love is you can already begin to see it. And so, we'll just keep peeling this off. And this is not the darkest dye I've ever done, but it did work. And I think it must be just this new plastic. I really do like the plastic, but I think it just has some different qualities than some of the other previous plastics they've had for this company, and so... This is my favorite part of the weeding too. I don't really like the first part very much because it's easy to mess it up if you don't take your time and kind of think through it. But this is, I think, the fun part. Because you get to see what your final outcome looks like. And this is not the easiest design to do. There are lots of little integral parts on this that are very easy to mess up, but it is doable. And I do know some of like the original pieces, they're just not going to take. If you look at your design, some of these little teeny tiny things work great if it's an actual stamp, not so much on a dye job, but the rest of it looks pretty awesome. Get the rest of those little pieces off. And I always do like to spray it down once and hit it up with a paper towel, making sure it is all nice and clean. And that turned out really cool, guys. I really like the look on that. Go ahead and make sure the back side. You can definitely tell it is a stencil die, but overall looks really cool. If this was helpful, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment. The other thing, once this is cooled down, I'm not going to do it right now on the screen, but you'll go ahead and use your funnel and pour it back in. I don't like to do it when it's hot because you do have the potential of cracking that. But hopefully this was helpful. Thank you guys so much. Hope you have a great day.